Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So as you guys can see for this video, I wanted to do a book recommendations tag. So I watched Sara do this tag and I was really enjoying her video and I really wanted to recreate it for myself. So I've taken all of the questions from Sara's video and kind of picked some books that I want to recommend to you guys. I will link Sara's video down below in the description box in case you guys want to watch her video. I will also have all of the questions down below in the description box, so if you guys want to answer the questions yourself in the comments or send me a DM on Instagram with your recommendations, then that would be really fun as well, just so we can all get recommendations from each other. Without further ado, let's jump into this video. Some of these books I have physically got with me, some of them I don't because I've lent them out to friends, and some of them I want to get a physical copy, so I will put like little pictures and things on the screen, and also some of these books will repeat because I want to recommend them to you. First question that we have is a book that you tell people that is your favorite. I've kind of done like multiple books for these answers. First one is a book that I've actually lent out to my best friend Rachel, but that is Black Ice by Becca Fitzpatrick. This one here I absolutely love. It is a YA thriller. I read it for the first time in high school and really enjoyed it. It was definitely something different for me. I was not really a thriller girly. You're following Britt and Corby, who are going away, I think it's for their winter break, and they are traveling up to the mountains to meet, I think it's Corby's brother Calvin, and along the way their car breaks down and they basically need some help to fix their car. So they notice a house in the distance that has its lights on, so they walk over to this house to try and get some help, and these two guys are staying there. They basically take these girls hostage and they are lost themselves. The only way that they will let these girls go is if they help navigate these guys off the mountain. There's kind of a little bit more to it than that. It's a nice kind of like wintry, thrillery kind of book. It gives me very similar vibes to Five Survive by Holly Jackson, so if you liked that book I feel like you will really enjoy Black Ice. The prologue is a little bit dark, but the prologue is the only part of the book that is dark, and it makes sense as you go through the book. But obviously it's a YA, so it's not like too gory or graphic or anything like that. I've actually realized that like all of these books that I'm recommending for books being my favorites are all thrillers and one fantasy, so sorry if that's not really your kind of thing. Arrangement by Robin Harding. I literally read this super duper fast. This is, I think it's an adult kind of like thriller mystery. It is not dark, so if you just want like a good kind of like mystery where you're trying to figure out what's happened alongside the main character, then this is a book for you. You are following Natalie. She lives in New York City, so you get like the New York setting, and she basically is struggling to make ends meet, struggling to pay her bills. She's also a college student, so you get a little bit of that, and she ends up signing up to this sugar baby website to be a sugar baby, and she meets a guy and things kind of go from there, and then someone ends up dead halfway through this book and she believes that she is somehow involved, but she is trying to figure out if she's actually involved, who killed this person, why they were killed, like all of that kind of thing. And it's very fast paced. On the front it just says love for money, what could go wrong. The last thriller that I've got again is another adult thriller, and that is Verity by Colleen Hoover. This one is like a little bit more unsettling, so I always say to people to go into this with caution. There are a couple of difficult scenes to read about that I feel like not everybody talks about, so definitely with this look up trigger warnings before you go into it. You are following Lauren, and she is a writer, but she is like struggling at the moment to make ends meet, struggling to pay her bills, all that stuff, and then she ends up having an opportunity to finish a series for Verity. So Verity is basically on bed rest. She is so sick to the point that she can't even move, so she can't finish her series. Lauren is invited by Verity's husband to come to their house, live at their house, basically help write the end of the series. She's obviously got access to all of Verity's resources and things like that, but things are not as they seem, and that's kind of where I'll leave it because I don't want to spoil too much of it. But this again was a very, very fast-paced read for me, very, very unsettling, but a really good read. I think the ending for me as well is one of those endings where like you're just kind of left trying to figure everything out. It does obviously wrap up, but it is one of those endings where it's like kind of like a who do you believe kind of story. And then the last recommendation that I always give people if they're after a fantasy is ACOTAR by Sarah J Maas. Now obviously I know that this has had so much hype on the internet, but it is a really, really good series. It is a 5-book series as of right now. The series is unfinished, so I think Sarah J Maas will give us some more books. In the first book, it is basically a Beauty and the Beast retelling. You are following Feyre, and Feyre is like the hunter for her family because her family are like really, really poor, and one day she's in the forest and she kills a wolf, or what she thinks is a wolf. Turns out it's not a wolf and it's Fae, and the Fae are like really, really mad that she has killed one of their own. So they basically take her and she has to live in the Fae world for basically the rest of her existence. So you have like the mortal world and the Fae world like alongside each other. That's kind of like the story of the first book. In the following books you do also get more of the romance that develops, so it is like a romantasy where you've got like fantasy and romance in the one book. In the last book we're following 2 different characters as well, like side characters who we met in the first few books. It started off as a YA series, but it has now moved into adult with just kind of the stuff and the content that is in there. But it is really, really good. It's a really, really easy fantasy world to understand, so I'd highly, highly recommend reading it if you haven't already. A book that is your guilty pleasure. So I have 2 for this category, and I kind of took this question as like books that I probably shouldn't enjoy as much as I do, and these ones are both romance books. Addicted to You by Krista and Becca Ritchie. So this is a like 10-book series, I think, where you have the Addicted series and the Calloway Sister series. You are recommended to read them together, but you can read them separately. I'm currently up to book 3. I actually just got book 3, so I'm hoping that I can continue reading this year. But in this first book you are following Lo and Lily. So Lily is a sex addict and Lo is an alcoholic. They are fake dating because they both come from very, very rich families who wouldn't approve of their lifestyle. So there's also that trope. So if you like that trope, you'll like the series. And basically they are just kind of encouraging each other's addictions and kind of hiding each other's addictions from their family. And as you go through the series, I think you get more growth in terms of their addictions and them learning to like overcome them and things like that. And it's just a really, really good read. The first book here I definitely enjoyed a bit more than the second book. It's one of those series that like you don't really have a lot of plot. It's just more like character driven, which sometimes I really like that because I like don't binge a lot of my books. I like pick them up, read a little bit before bed, put them down, or like pick them up, read on the bus, put it down. And a series like this is great to do that too. So I would highly recommend starting this series if you haven't. And then the other one, of course, that I have to mention, Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. Now I know that not everybody loves this series, but I personally really, really enjoyed the first book. I don't have my copy as of right now because I have lent it out to my sister to borrow, but basically it's very Chuck and Blair from Gossip Girl, but instead of being set in New York City, it is set in London. In the first book you are following Magnolia and BJ. Again, they both come from very, very rich families, and their relationship is just very like on again, off again, very toxic. A lot of like rich people talk. You obviously like learn a little bit about their friends and their family, and the writing is just beautiful. Like it's literally like no other. And I think that's why I enjoy the book as much as I do, because quite frankly, if she was my friend, I would be like, you should not get back with BJ, like he is toxic and you're just gonna keep being unhappy. But in the book it somehow works, and I feel like they're both like a little bit misunderstood. You can also understand why they are the way that they are because of their family and their upbringings, and I think because I understand that, I can kind of like not relate to the characters by any means, but I can like sympathize with them. So I'm yet to continue the series. I'm up to book 2, which is Daisy Hates. It is on my 24 books to read in 2024, which I did do a video on, so if you guys missed it, I'll leave it down below. A book that everyone loved but you didn't. So I have 2 for this one. The first one that I want to mention is Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. It's not that I didn't enjoy this book, I just wasn't as obsessed with it as everybody else is. I've only read the first book and the little novella that comes after this, so I feel like maybe as I read the series it will be a little bit better. I enjoyed it, I thought it was a good story, but it's by no means my like favorite dystopian book by any means. It's a YA dystopian where you are following Juliet, and Juliet has lethal touch, so basically anyone that she touches dies. And where this book starts, she is locked up in the re-establishment, which is kind of like the New World government type people, and they basically just want to weaponize her, and she doesn't want that. So that's kind of where you go from this series. I also thought I would include one that I just really didn't like, and that was Bad Girl Reputation by Elle Kennedy. I just felt like the guy in this book was so insufferable. Like, he just was very lust driven after the girl. I did not believe in their chemistry. The main girl was just really mean as well, and I just didn't like them, didn't like the two of them together. And I feel like this book was like all over BookTok, and I don't understand why. It was terrible. I don't even remember what the plot was, but I remember that there wasn't much plot, to be honest. Like, there wasn't much that was happening. I think it was just these two characters trying to get with each other. A book that you've read the fastest. So all of these books that I'm going to recommend to you I read in 2 days, and that only happens if I really love a book. 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. Currently don't have my copy of this because I have lent it out to my best friend Rachel, but again, very fast-paced read. It is told over a period of 24 hours. It's a YA thriller where basically 6 friends are going in an RV. I think it's on their summer break or their spring break to this beach house to just really enjoy their spring break with each other, be by the pool, all that kind of stuff. And on the way there, their RV breaks down and someone starts shooting at the RV because someone on this RV has a secret that the person that is shooting at the RV wants. The whole book you're trying to figure out who it is, whose secret they want, and also who is shooting at the RV and why they're shooting at the RV. And it's just really fast paced. The next book is an OG book, but that is Catching Fire in the Hunger Games trilogy. This one obviously is written by Suzanne Collins. I read the Hunger Games back when I was 14, when it like first came out. I read the first book in 5 days, this one in 2 days, and the last book in 7 days. But I absolutely loved Catching Fire. Obviously you are following the 25th Hunger Games, where everyone who has won in the past from the districts gets put into a draw, and it's kind of like the best of the best, like fight to the death. But I really loved the arena in this scene. I loved the plot twist at the end that kind of sets up for the last one. Yeah, it was just such a good read. Obviously I feel like everybody has heard about this, but it was fantastic. And again, the last one, The Arrangement by Robin Harding. Read this super duper quick. Again, just if you want to binge a book, this is one to binge. Book that deserves more hype. So I have done a video of all of my underrated books, which I'm hoping that this video is up by the time that this video goes up. If it's not, it's coming soon. I'll just pop a couple of recommendations in here from that video. It's Hunted by Megan Spooner. This one is a YA fantasy. If you enjoyed ACOTAR, you will enjoy this, because this again is another Beauty and the Beast retelling. I describe it as like ACOTAR without the torture in the book. If you know, you know. And it's just a little bit more fluffy. You get a dual POV at certain points. The Beast has like a few pages, but it's really interesting to like see what he's thinking throughout the whole thing. The setting is beautiful in this book as well, and it's very easy to read. It was one that I borrowed from the library, so I don't have a physical copy of it. I really want to get a physical copy of it because I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. It's also like set in like older times, which I don't normally love, but I really loved in this book. The next book again will come as no surprise if you guys have been on my channel for a while, but that is The Loop by Ben Oliver. I feel like I have not shut up about this book since I read it last year. It is the first book in a trilogy as well, but I'm just going to recommend the first book. I loved the first book. The second book was like alright. It wasn't as good as this, but it was still good. And then the last book I haven't read yet. This is a YA dystopian trilogy. Kind of centers around AI as well. Basically you're following Luca, and Luca is a prisoner on death row. He is locked up in a prison called The Loop, where you have the exact same routine every single day. you have 1 hour of sunlight per day, but you can't ever like see the other people in the cells because there's like these big concrete walls between all of their outside areas. You can talk to them, but you just can't see them. The prison is controlled by AI, and then one day the system glitches and it's kind of just like a race to escape. Also in this prison you can do what are called delays, where basically you can get new technology tested on you to try and enhance the world outside and kind of make people live longer. And if you do one of these delays, you push back your death date. So it's kind of like the only way to survive longer in this prison is to do these delays. But there are rumors of war outside of this prison as well. So there's quite a bit going on, but it's really, really fast paced, really short chapters. Some chapters are literally like a page long. If you really enjoyed The Maze Runner and The Matrix, this is like a hybrid of the two. So would definitely recommend, and again it's YA, so very quick and easy to read. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. I feel like since I have read the series, again I have not shut up about it, but it is such a good series. This is what I would describe as a YA urban fantasy. I think it's technically like teen urban fantasy, but it reads more YA than teen. Basically you are following Jacob, and Jacob is kind of just like an ordinary guy going about his life, and then one day his grandfather dies and leaves him a cryptic message to find the lady in the loop. That message leads Jacob on a quest which leads him to Miss Peregrine and Miss Peregrine's Peculiar Children, and that's kind of like where the magic begins. All of Miss Peregrine's children have abilities that children really shouldn't have, and it is a 6-book series, and then there is also a little novella that you can read. I just finished this series this year and it is fantastic. It's such a good series, and what I really like about this is that the story is told around these really old, quite frankly odd Polaroid photos, like things like this, where they use to tell the story, and you have all of these Polaroids throughout all of the books, and yeah, some of them are just like quite strange, but they're really fast paced. So much happens in the series. You go on so many adventures with all of these characters, and I love every single one of these characters. I love this world. It's honestly one of my favorite series of all time, so if you've not read it, please read it. Ransom Riggs is just so creative, and there is nothing that I have read that is like this. I also really like the fact that no matter who you are reading this series, we all have a very similar idea of what is going on because there are pictures that we can kind of use to visualize. So I really love that. Every Day by David Levithan. Again, I read this in high school, absolutely loved it. This is a YA magical realism kind of book. Basically you are following A, and A is a consciousness, and basically I call him he because it's the easiest way that I can comprehend it in my brain, but he inhabits human bodies, and it's like a different body every single day. So he basically just gets to live somebody's life for a day. He can only inhabit people of the age that he is and been existing for like 16 years, for example. He can only inhabit 16-year-olds and so forth. One day he falls in love with a girl who he doesn't want to forget. So I just love the writing. It's incredible. There are also some trigger warnings for this book, so I would look those up before you go into this. I feel like nobody talks about this, and it's such a good book. There is also another book in this little duology called Another Day, where it's basically the same story but told from the love interest's point of view, and that's really interesting as well. And I think it just goes to show that like you never really know like what's going on in somebody's life unless they tell you, because there's a lot that people like hide about themselves, and I liked being able to see so many different people's lives in the one book. The last one that I have for this question is Die For Me by Amy Plum. I only have the first book as of right now, but it is a trilogy. I read this in high school and absolutely loved it. You are following this chick and her parents pass away, and so her and her sister have to go live, I think it's with their grandma, yeah, in Paris. So you get like the Paris setting, and she meets this guy called Vincent, and Vincent is not human. I don't want to say what he does because it will spoil it, but basically he is somebody who is not human. He is from the underworld, and he risks his life every single day, and that's just how he is. It's what he has to do to survive. The story kind of goes from there. Obviously there is a romance in here as well. It's like quite high stakes from what I remember as well. Again, YA. It's technically classified as paranormal fiction. It gave me very similar vibes to Twilight. So if you enjoyed the Twilight series, I would recommend this. And it's not like ghosts and stuff, so if that freaks you out, then you still can read this, because that stuff freaks me out. Such a great trilogy and very, very underrated. A book that is becoming a movie or a TV show that you enjoyed. So I've got a few for this one. The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. Again, my sister is borrowing my copy of this book here, but I really, really enjoyed this book. It was very, very witty. It is a romance book. Basically you are following Tiffy and Leon. Leon works the night shift, Tiffy works the day shift, and they basically just share this one bedroom flat, but they've never ever met. So they sleep there when the other person is at work, and then they start leaving notes for each other, and the romance kind of goes from there. It's super duper cute, and I feel like I saw a lot of myself in the main character, and I feel like her sense of humor was my sense of humor, and I just thought the characters were developed really, really well. I haven't watched the TV show yet because I don't know if I love the way that they cast it, but the book was really, really good. Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. I read this trilogy back in high school for the first time and absolutely loved it. I also reread it again at the start of last year and loved it. It's a great summer read. It is a YA romance trilogy. Basically you are following Belly, and her mum and her go to the small town of Cousins every summer to spend the summer, because Belly's mum's like best friend lives there with her two sons, Jeremiah and Conrad, and Belly is kind of just like trying to figure out which boy she likes, basically. Obviously there is a lot of romance in this. You get the small town. I absolutely loved the TV show as well. I feel like the summer house was like pretty much exactly how I pictured it in the book. The casting was done really, really well. Very, very quick and easy to read. I think I reread the trilogy in like a week, so such a good like by the beach read as well. And then the other one that I want to recommend is obviously It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This is a movie that comes out in August. You are following Lily, and she kind of just moves to a town to kind of just like start over basically, and she meets a guy. Things kind of go from there, and then her childhood best friend, who again was another guy that she kind of had a thing with back in the day, pops back up in this town. There are a lot of trigger warnings for this book, so definitely look them up before you go into this, but I absolutely loved this. It was a really, really good read, and I really liked that this was Colleen Hoover's way of expressing her mum's relationship and kind of like her mum's story, because that just made it even more real for me. And I'm really, really excited that Blake Lively is playing the main girl, because I think she is a great actress. Book that you reread, and I feel like I literally only have one for this. I don't really do a lot of rereads. That is The Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy. Again, reread this at the start of last year. So the first book is The Summer I Turned Pretty, which I have the movie cover for because I don't like the cover that matches these, because it has like these giant faces on it and it's just not cute. So I've got this one. The second book is It's Not Summer Without You, and then the third book is We'll Always Have Summer. But again, just such a good summer series to binge. A book that you enjoyed from a genre that you don't typically read. Now I picked a non-fiction book for this one because I don't read a lot of non-fiction. I read memoirs, but like actual non-fiction, I feel like I went through a big stage when I was younger, like when I was like 15, 16, reading non-fiction for like beauty and makeup and fashion books, but I don't really read a lot of that now. But a non-fiction that I read last year that I absolutely loved was Love Stories by Trent Dalton. So this one here is an Australian author, and basically he just sat on a busy street in like the Brisbane CBD and just asked people for their love stories and then collated them into a story. There are a list of trigger warnings at the start of the book. Definitely make sure you read that before you go into it. But I just read a few of these at night before I went to sleep, and it was just so wholesome and just really, really cool that these are like real people's stories. And yeah, you could just buy this book from Kmart. Absolutely loved it. You could probably even just binge it in one day if you wanted to, if you've got the time. A book that deserves all the hype that it gets. Obviously I mentioned ACOTAR before. I do think that this series deserves all of the hype that it gets. It is a really, really well written series. The characters are developed really, really well. The fantasy world is really easy to understand, but also developed really, really well. The next book that I have for this question is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This one I feel like was the book of 2023. Like, it was just so popular, and I read this year and absolutely loved it. It's kind of a cross between How to Train Your Dragon, Hunger Games, and Harry Potter. This is I think it's an adult fantasy book where you are following Violet, and Violet is attending this war college where she really wants to be a scribe, and they're the people who kind of like write down history. Her mum is like the head lady of the school, and she is basically like, no daughter of mine will be a scribe because it's seen as like a lesser role. She will be a dragon rider who are kind of like the military and kind of like protect this school from like outside threats. And basically Violet is thrown into these trials to learn how to be a dragon rider, and she basically has to survive, and these trials are like really intense, and she's just like this little passive girl that's in there. But it was really good. I really enjoyed this story. It is quite a chunky book. It's like 500 pages, but I absolutely loved every second of it. I loved all the dragons in this. This is also the first book in the Imperium series. I'm yet to read book 2, which is Iron Flame, and I think we are getting more books coming in this series. The last one that I want to recommend for this question is a newer book that I have just finished, Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This very much gives Hunger Games, so if you enjoyed Hunger Games, you will enjoy this. This is a YA fantasy where you are following Paiden and Kai. Now, in this world, you have elites and ordinaries. Elites are people that have powers, and ordinaries are people that do not. Kai is an elite, Paiden is an ordinary. Paiden comes from like the slums, is hella poor, steals to make a living, and Kai is an elite, so he has powers, and he is from like the royal family in this fantasy world. They have a run-in, and then Paiden ends up competing in 3 different trials with elites. Like, they're all elites that she's competing against, and she basically just has to survive. It was written very well. Lauren Roberts is also very young. Like, I'm pretty sure she's 22, and she started writing this when she was 18, and it got published at 21, but you cannot tell. Like, the writing in this is so good. This one is also going to be a trilogy. Really good. Again, it's a bit of a longer book, but the banter in this is so good. It's very witty. Book that you usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation. All of the books that I mentioned for the first question that I tell people is my favorite is generally the ones that I recommend. A book that has your favorite characters. So I have a romance and a fantasy, both series. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. All of these peculiar children literally feel like my friends. Like, I am still so attached to all of these characters. Like, the fact that this book is like words on paper and these people don't exist actually baffles me, because they have such a special place in my heart, and I absolutely love every single one of them. I love Miss Peregrine, I love the world, but like, it's definitely a series that I want to reread, and probably soon, to be honest. They've written so well. They've got a lot of growth. Obviously there is like romance and stuff within, and it's honestly so good. Of course, I have to mention the Maple Hills series by Hannah Grace, so Icebreaker and Wildfire. We are also getting book 3, which is Daydream, coming out in August. I love all of the characters in the hockey team. They're all just like so good. All of the partners, they all have like really good banter, and they're all just like really tight, and they just feel like a family. I love the way that Hannah Grace has written Found Family. It is just incredible. One thing to note with these books though is that they are spicy, so if you don't like spice, you might not like these. But I don't really like a lot of spice, and some of it was like a bit much, but I really enjoyed the stories and enjoyed the Found Family, that for me the spice was worth enduring. A book that you wish you could live in. The first one, of course, has to be The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Again, my sister is borrowing the first book. In this book you are following Avery, and Avery is like struggling to make ends meet. She's living out of her car, working a job with like minimal pay, can't afford food, and then one day she inherits billions of dollars from this old rich guy that she's never met, and the family don't get nowhere near as much as Avery, and she is just trying to figure out why she's inherited all of this money. And to inherit all of this money, she basically just has to live at Hawthorne House with all of the family from this rich guy for a year. And I just love the house, like with all its like secret passageways within the walls and all the like hidden entryways and stuff. It just is incredible, and it just sounds like such a beautiful place. Of course, I would love to live in the Cousins beach town from The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. I love this town, the small town, the beach. Summer is like my favorite season. Of course, I would love to live in a little beachside town. It sounds incredible. A book you thought you would hate but ended up enjoying. So I don't know if I thought I would hate this book, but I just didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did. The Yearbook Committee by Sara Carolli. So this one here, you get 5 different perspectives from different characters at high school. So you have people from like different cliques, and they all are joined together on the yearbook committee. The like actual like yearbook itself is a bit more of like a subplot, and it's more of like you're following these characters throughout their last year of high school as they kind of learn to like kind of put up with each other. Obviously there is like some romance that happens in this, but this book is very, very witty, and I honestly did not expect to be laughing as much as I was in this book. I really hoped that I would like it because the cover, quite frankly, is just super duper cute. A very, very easy like YA high school kind of like general fiction book. A book that made you cry. The first book I want to recommend, I feel like everyone knows about, but that is If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. This is kind of like the right person, wrong time kind of situation. It is a YA romance book. I read this at the start of the year. I borrowed it from my library. I don't currently have a copy of it, but my sister has the book, and she only reads books once and then kind of like passes them on. I'm waiting for her to finish it before I basically just take her copy. You are following Autumn and Finn, I think, or Phineas. They were childhood best friends, and then something happened to the point where they don't talk anymore, and then something big happens in the book, which you read about at the start of the book. So you know that it's coming, but you just don't quite know like how you get there or what happens afterwards, and the story kind of like goes from there. I don't really want to say much more, and I know that's really, really vague, but otherwise it will spoil the story. But I got really connected to the characters. I love childhood best friends when they like get together, because for me that just feels like one of the most like real and like wholesome ways that people get into romances, with either like childhood best friends or like friends of friends or whatever. I think I connect to it too because like my husband I met because I was friends with his cousin in high school. So like yeah, it hits for me every time. All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. I read this book in high school for the first time after Zoe Sugg recommended it. Absolutely loved it. Basically you are following Theodore and Violet. They meet at the top of the school bell tower, and Theo is like obsessed with death, basically, kind of like a very unhealthy obsession with death. But you just follow them as they like strike up a friendship. Again, it's kind of like that friends to lovers kind of thing, and then something happens in the book. It also touches on grief, as Violet is going through grief. So definitely check the trigger warnings before you go into this book. But again, it's a YA romance book. Very, very easy to read. But I literally sobbed for like 3 hours after finishing this book. It really hit me. This one just says the story of a girl who learns to live from a boy who wants to die. The last book that I have that was a tearjerker for me is Story of a Girl. This one is by SARA'S. You are following Deanna, and I think she ends up being friends with a guy, and this guy is like really, really sick, and so like their friendship kind of like grows and develops. It kind of reminds me a little bit of The Fault in Our Stars. If you guys have read that book, then I feel like you'll really like this because it's very, very similar. Again, YA romance book. Very, very easy to read. The last question that I have for this video, a book that you wish you could reread for the first time. Obviously I have to mention ACOTAR, again by Sarah J Maas. Again, just the characters, the setting, the way that the story unfolds, and I feel like all the little like Easter eggs that like you get throughout the book that make sense as you go through in the series, that like you think is so insignificant but actually mean a lot. I definitely want to do a reread of the series to kind of like see all of the like little things that kind of just like skip over your head. Again, obviously I have to mention Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Again, love the characters, love the world. It's just developed so well. So there we go, guys. Those are all of the books that I have for this book recommendations video, and those are all of the questions that I have for this tag. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you have not already. Please make sure to turn on the notifications and check out my social media. It's always linked down below in the description box. If you guys want to watch more book related videos, I have an entire playlist called Reading on my channel, so I will leave that down below, and they'll have more recommendations in that video for you guys. If you guys have read any of these books, let me know that down below in the comments as well, or if you want to read any of these after watching this video, then let me know that as well. And I think that's everything, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.